This is a Poulan P3314 chainsaw. On a previous video, I was able to get this saw to fire off. It will start and run, however the fuel line is leaking and the carburetor seems to have a problem. It also needs a good old-fashioned cleanup. Hello everyone, I'm Big Al Cox. Welcome to the shop. On the bench today is my Poulan P3314 chainsaw. This unit was a freebie from a garage clean out on the property probably some 5 years ago. This saw is a 14-inch bar. The engine is a 33cc. That's adequate for trimming and light cutting duties. This saw was manufactured in 2010 and they sold for between $120 and $160. So I spoke with my good friends at HIPA Store .com and they are sending me the carburetor, fuel lines, air filter, and a new primer bulb. In the meantime, I'd like to clean and inspect the saw, check out the drive mechanics, lubricate, and do some general maintenance on it. The top's already loose on this thing. It was loose on it whenever I got it, actually. I'll show you that the saw will start up, but it's not running all that good. It has a leaking fuel line right around the gas tank, so either it's got the wrong size fuel line on it or that fuel line is defective. Also, when I try to adjust the carburetor, I have no control over it. But I'll start it up, show you that it does run. Yes, I can't seem to bring the carburetor into any kind of adjustment. If you can look here, the oiler is actually working on it. You can see where it's oiling the chain. I figured while I was waiting on the carburetor to come, which I'll pull this carburetor and I'll rebuild it and I'll have it as a backup. I always do that if I change out a carburetor, and when I do that I'll show you how to rebuild it. This is actually a Zama carburetor, the original on here. For now I'm going to pull this cover. This is a 13 millimeter. I figured out this is the best thing that works on it. Get everything nice and cleaned up and in prep of our carburetor coming. Oh, that's nice and dirty. You can see the bar oiler's working, nice and oily in there. And really we just need to clean all that up. Since I'm dealing with a chainsaw blade here, put on something a little thicker in case that blade is sharp. See what the bar looks like here. Actually, the bar looks in fairly good shape. There's no dings or anything. Doesn't look like it's warped or nothing. Well, we'll clean that up and reuse it. If you look down in here, you can see this does have some sprocket wear. It's not really bad, but there is some to it. Could stand a replacement. But we'll see how it does. That's kind of a way of telling how much the saw's been used. And I'd say it's been mediumly used. I'm going to take some of this gunk brake parts cleaner. This is what I like to use to clean these things up. And one of these kind of brushes here, it's like a soft bristle brush, and just clean all this up. I would say that's definitely cleaner than it was before. After all, I am refurbishing this saw. I'm not restoring this saw. I could spend a week cleaning a saw, or I could go cut some wood. Okay, now what I want to do is blow all that out with some air, and any remaining chunks will hopefully come on out of there. Okay, now I can look at kind of cleaning these parts up. Got this kind of piece of flat metal here I like to use for these little tight areas where I can't really use a putty knife. Does just as good of a job. What's for supper? Nice and cruddy. I'll blow that out, clean it off. You could arguably eat a snack off of that watching a football game now. Some spray away, make it smell better. Spray away just smells good. Your girlfriend would hold that now for you while you were doing something. Same deal with this piece. I'm just going to spray some parts cleaner on it, clean it off. Okay, let's see about cleaning the bar up now. We'll start by just spraying this channel out here with some cleaner. Kind of flushing it out a little bit. Then I'm going to take this small blade screwdriver and just run it along this slot here. Clean out any debris that might be in there. Then I'll take some compressed air and blow those channels out. Just want to mainly make sure that your chain has a good path there. Good old-fashioned path to get around. Got to have a clear path to walk. Do a kind of preliminary towel off here. I just took my air gun and blew this channel out real nice. You see there's no debris down in there. Just make sure that you get any debris that's in those channels cleaned out. I'll go get a new steel chain for this on Monday or something. It's late Friday now, so I'm not going to go anywhere today. Okay, continuing on, we're going to get this starter cover off of here and clean all this up in behind that and anything else we need to. That'll give us access to this primer bulb here too, and the fuel lines hopefully. And one more back here. That ain't as bad as I thought it might be. If you look here, you can see some grime in here, not too bad. Other than that, we need to just get all this cleaned out. It's really not that bad on this side. And our cooling fins are already pretty much clean there. But if you have dirt and grime in these cooling fins, be sure to get all that out of there too. Okay, I've got my tank purged. If you look down in it, you can see your fuel filter pickup there. Tank doesn't look too dirty. You can purge and clean that out with some brake cleaner or some carb cleaner. I'm going to pre-scrape a little of the grime out of this housing here. This is a part of your airflow keeping the engine cool, so you definitely want that passage to be clean and free of any debris. In fact, this is something you want to do once a year if you use your saw. Okay, I'm going to take some compressed air and just blow off. Okay, now I'm going to use my parts cleaner to kind of clean this up and spray some of this out. Now that does it for that can. Now I'm just taking a paper towel here and cleaning my fins up best I can with a little screwdriver and a paper towel. You want as much airflow through a saw as you can get. So let me work on that a little bit and get it cleaned up. Okay, check it out, friends. I have cleaned my whole saw up here, cleaned the flywheel up, got all the debris out of the air passage area there. I've also cleaned and purged my gas tank, got any debris that might be down in there out of there. I'm also going to replace that fuel pickup there and get that out of there. But for now, all of this is cleaned up and looks nice. I'm going to take some PB Blaster and I'm going to lubricate these little fingers right here that catch the starter mechanics. Just want to make sure those move freely. If your starter ever starts acting funny, you might want to pull the cover off and oil those. Next thing I want to do is clean up this pull start cover, get all this dirt and grime out of here, and then lubricate these mechanics here. Start by scraping all the grime out of them. Okay, I've got my pull start cover cleaned out. I would say that's probably the cleanest that's been since it was brand new. So that's ready to go back on. I'm going to lubricate the mechanics here. And we're good to go. Well, the HIPA carburetor isn't here yet, but I thought I would go ahead and pull this carburetor. It's a 5/16 socket. This is a T20 hex. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect these kill switch wires here. Okay. Next, I'm going to take off this choke and kill switch assembly here and just remember how all that goes back together there. This is going to be like that. There's a spring clip in behind that. And this is your choke lever. And this plate should pull off. Mine's on there pretty dang tight, I can tell you that. Dang. I mean, really. Okay, I think I can come off with this carburetor now, hopefully. Okay. Well, what the hey is that? What a hack that was, huh? Because that fuel line is way too small for that hole. Now that's definitely some redneck engineering there. This looks like an original fuel line here running down into there. Those are going to be some hard fuel lines to put in too. Fuel lines are so baked, they just break in two. Baked 325 degrees, extra crispy. Let's prise off these old fuel lines here. I mean, you can just see how baked that is. Of course, his fix may have lasted for a while, you know. Sometimes you go with what you got. This is a Zama carburetor. Well, the next step's going to be to get these old fuel lines out of this gas tank, which is going to be a lot of fun. Actually, that fuel pickup don't look too awful bad there. It's this back fuel line that's going to be hard to get in, back down in there. You can see that runs back down in there. It's going to be a tight area to work in. Well, I got some goodies in the mail. One of these should be a small engine compression tester. Let's see if we can get this open here. Probably going to see ones like this all over eBay right now. Instruction page there. Definitely a couple of things I need to test with this. Kit looks decent quality. Comes in handy. This should be the carburetor for our 3314 from HIPA Store .com and our air filter. Yes. There's our carburetor, brand new. This is our new one. This is the one out of the saw, the original Zama. This also comes with the fuel lines, spark plug, new fuel pickup filter, a new primer bulb. Okay, I'm going to try to extract these old fuel lines here, starting with this one way down here in the back, which is just falling apart. Like, this is the French fries left in the bottom of the fryer at the end of the day. Okay, let me cut this past that redneck engineering there. Let's see if we can reach down in there and get a hold of that. Baked. Okay, I think I got that back vent line fished out of there. The fuel line that went to one side of this primer bulb had already EOL'd itself. If you look on the primer bulb, there's a couple of tabs right here. You're going to want to mash both of those in to get this old one out. To get this fuel line in back here, you're going to need a piece of wire. Now, the reason I pulled this wire through here is I'm going to have to cut my fuel line at an angle and then tie this to it and then attempt to pull that through the tank. Okay, you got to cut as much of an angle as you can on this fuel line. I'm going to go with that. You see how I've got my wire stuck through that fuel line there. I'm just going to push it on through. Okay, you see I've got that connected there. Now I'm going to try to pull it through the... Okay, if you look down in here, you can see I'm ready to try to pull this thing through this hole here. Take some PB blaster and spray that on your fuel line to make it a little bit slick to help you get it through that hole. I'm pulling on this and it's coming through. Okay, now that I got my hose pulled through, I can cut this off even. Then I'll add my hose connector. Okay, I got my hose connector on now. and I'll pull that up until it hits the top of the tank. When you feel the hose hit the top of the tank, stop there. And that gives you a secure hose connection to your tank. Now we'll get our main fuel line in, which goes right here. Okay, for this one I'm cutting like a little off the sides to make like a long end on it there. Now when I stick this down in the gas tank, I should be able to see it on the other side and grab it with my needle nose pliers. You look down in there, you can see the fuel line coming in. Now I'll cut this hose off even. That's a little easier than using the wire to me to do that side. Now I'll attach my fuel pickup. Attach that securely because that's going to be flopping around in the tank. And we can just drop that back down in there. And we want to make sure that we have enough where this can freely move around in here when we cut the length of this hose. Now the fuel pickup line is going to run to the inlet on our carburetor. There's a gasket that sits on that intake right there behind your carburetor. What I'm going to do is take a little bit of grease and I'm going to grease up this gasket. When you do that, that'll make these gaskets last a lot longer. Keeps them from tearing up and disintegrating. The next time you take it off, it won't be stuck to your carburetor. Nice and greasy. And I'll just plop that right on there. Okay, I have my greased up gasket in place there. Don't forget to put this rubber grommet back on the back of your carburetor. And I'm going to hook up my fuel inlet. Okay. Now I'll slide my carburetor on, get this grommet back on your intake mount there. Okay, this is going to be another clear line that runs out of our carburetor on this side, and that's going to connect to the primer bulb's input. You may have to slide this up just a little bit to get this started. That's a pretty secure install there, and that's going to come down to our primer bulb's input side. Now our clear line that runs back to the tank, our return, is going to go on this long stem. Then our return from the carburetor will go on the short stem. Okay, I have my fuel lines connected here, as you can see. I'm just going to snap my bulb right back into place there. Just like that. It's really coming down. Once you have all that installed, you can kind of look it over, make sure all your fuel lines are connected. Everything looks good. And that's the intake line right there. Run over to the carburetor's intake. Coming off the carburetor to the bulb, and then back to the tank. So my circuit is complete there. Our fuel pickup has plenty of room to move around in the bottom of the tank there. I'm going to go in and grab a cup of coffee. I've been out here in the shop for about probably 40 minutes, and this is what we already have. It's about 40 minutes later. Still coming down pretty good. Bigger flakes now. Okay, now it's time to get our throttle linkage back on. I had forgotten there's actually a trick to getting this back on there where you don't have to take that throttle off of there. You can just pull on your throttle there and make that lever come out enough where you can get that in the hole there. Just like that. Beautiful. You can see a little difference in these carburetors in the sense that this kind of kicks that over like that, whereas this has a bar linkage set up. But it achieves the same thing. Okay, our next step's going to be to get our air filter holder back on here / mounting plate. Okay, get our nuts back on there. This is a 5/16. Tighten those down there. I kind of go back and forth on these and make sure it gets an even tighten on the intake mount there. You don't want to over tighten this. You want it on there good and tight, but you don't want to also crack this plate. This is, after all, plastic, and it is aging plastic also. Okay, I think the carburetor is mounted there. The next thing we're going to need to do is get our kill switch and our choke reinstalled back here on the side. Also here on this plate is a T25 Torx, don't forget that. Okay, we're going to reinstall our choke lever first, which has this stem on it here, and that connects right there to that choke on the carburetor, and that's going to sit right there. And that pulls your choke in and out. Okay, next you're going to have a notch here in this spring, and if you look on your lever, you see this notch right here. That spring notch is going to sit in that notch on this lever. So I'm going to take a small screwdriver here, and I'm just going to push down on that and just line up that notch there with that spring. All right. And just reinstall your slot screw there. Kill switch engage. choke. Good to go. Okay, we'll get our kill switch wires hooked back up now. You want to get this on off switch into the off position, which is up like that. Once you have your switch in the off position, you're going to feed this terminal down into that hole, and it's going to slide right down into that slot on the lever there, just like that. You can see how that's sitting in that slot right there. And then this yellow wire spade here is going to connect right here onto this terminal. Okay, that's our choke and our kill switch wires reinstalled. I took some 3M 755 friction tape and just kind of extended this protection out here just a little bit, just to keep those wires secure there. Okay, we're going to install our new HIPA spark plug here. Copper core, they won't spare no expense. Three-quarter deep well socket. Okay, I think that wraps up all the internals on this saw. Everything's clean. Our new carburetor's installed. Our new fuel lines are installed. Something I haven't seen in a good while around here is an icicle. In like the last 3 years, we haven't had below freezing temperatures when we've had moisture to come through. This is the first year in 3 years that we've had a situation to actually have an icicle. Isn't that something? I don't know what they're putting in the rain, but that tasted plumb terrible. I mean terrible. Now we'll get our starter cover back on here. These are 4 T25 screws. And that's our starter cover back on.
Almost all of our snow has melted over the last couple of hours. Out the day today. That February sun is pretty strong, and when the air is dry and it's really windy outside, it does tend to melt very quickly. It's in the 15-degree range in the mountains right now, mid-20s in the foothills, and below freezing already at 5 o'clock across all of the Triad. We talk about the winds. They're still gusting around 35 miles per hour from Winston-Salem to Greensboro, 26 mile per hour gust in Burlington.
I think I've decided to replace this chain. Even though I cleaned it up, it doesn't really look that good. As a matter of fact, I think it may have been the original chain on the saw for that matter. Anyway, I've decided to replace it with this steel chain on the right. It looks a lot better. It's going to cut a lot better too with that chain. Okay, I'm going to start by going back with this plate right here. Go on to the bar. Now this chain's going to go on the bar just like that. Okay, looks good. Now you want to be sure to get this chain tensioner in line with the hole on your bar right here. You can see my hole is like right under the second mount bolt there. So I'm going to try to line that up with that so I can get it as close as possible. And you'll know you're in that hole because your plate will set flush against the saw. I'm just going to put my bolts on there for right now and snug them down just a little. Then I'll adjust my tensioner screw until the chain is tight. You don't want your chain to come out of the guide bar. Okay, I'll go ahead and tighten the outer cover bolts down now. Then I check my chain tightness again. That looks pretty good. And that's our new chain installed. I like to take some 3-in-1 oil and pre-lube my chain up. Just go over it and also lubricate your sprocket. Now if I have to adjust this carburetor, I will need to use this special spline tool included in this HIPA adjustment kit. This kit has many specialized adjustment tools for two-stroke carburetors. Brands like Steel, Husqvarna, and Ryobi, and some others are going to require this special tool to adjust the carburetor. So this is a great kit to have in the toolbox. It also comes with this carb clean out kit. You can get yours now at HIPA STORE .com, HIPA 360 on eBay and Amazon. I turned my H and L screws all the way in and backed them out about a turn and a half or so. This is a good general adjustment for most two-stroke carburetors to start from. Also, I want to mention that this saw, other than the little test cranks I've done with it, has not run for any real length of time in probably over 7 or 8 years. So it will go through some changes as I start using it. Whereas if your saw was already running, maybe last week or a few months ago, you may be able to change out the carb and do just a little adjustment and then go on. In this case, the engine will need to run and go through some heat cycles before I can probably get it honed in to its best running state. So what I'm going to do is start the saw. I'm going to let it run. I'll let it run for about 7 to 10 minutes, let it get warm. I'll try to adjust the carburetor after that. A good running saw starts with the right fuel. I use this 50-to-1 True Fuel. It takes all the guesswork out of it. There's no ethanol in it. And anytime that you do a fuel service on a small engine, don't just go crazy and fill the gas tank up, because if you have a leaking fuel line or something's wrong and you have to purge the tank again, you won't have a bunch of fuel in there. So I'll put about a quarter tank, enough, and that'll also tell you too if your fuel pickup's good and in the right place. So as you use the saw, your fuel level goes down, so you want to make sure also that your pickup can get fuel off the bottom of the tank. Saw has actually been a lot of fun to work on. I don't get to work on too many of these because frankly they're just not worth a lot of money. A good one of these running, you know, I could probably sell for maybe 65, 75, 80 bucks. So, you know, your time and parts can add up quick on something like this. But I need a good trim saw, and I'm hoping this is going to work out. One thing I haven't really checked on this saw is the oil tank. But the oiler was working on the bar, so that's one of the reasons why. Doesn't really look cruddy or dirty. I'm going to add a little more to it though before I do a test run. If I do have a problem later on down the road, I'll clean that oil tank out in the oil pickup and filter in that. But for now, that's working, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So let's see if she'll fire up today. All right. Check out, let's do our primer bulb. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Go 6 times on it. Let's see if she'll fire. Okay, I'm going to add in a little more bar oil here since I didn't put very much in there before and I've been running this thing. It's also been like an hour, so this thing's cold. I want to see how it does with a cold start again. Then we'll test it and see what it'll do with a new chain. Okay, I think I got my carburetor as close as I can get it. When it's running warm and doing good, at least I think I'm at a good setting. I'm going to run this a little bit, let that blade get oiled up. I'm going to turn my idle up just a little bit. extended up 2 turns out on the low idle screw, about 2.5 turns on the high idle screw, and about 2 turns counterclockwise on my saw idle screw. It still has that I haven't run in 8 years smell. You mechanics know what I'm talking about. With this saw not running in 8 years, I think running some heat cycles and a few tanks mixed with some Marvel Mystery Oil have the machine reliably starting now. I have run through 1 tank of just 50 to 1. Also, now I can start the saw cold by the procedure, which is 6 pumps, full choke, start, half choke, let it run about 15 or 20 seconds, then throttle it, and that releases the choke. I have a small tree beside of a building here that needs to go. Let's see if it'll take it out. Oh, sawdust pretty good. Take the time when you're done to blow out your saw and clean it up. Keeping your saw clean of debris after you use it cuts down on wear on your sprocket and clutch parts and keeps your chain oiler working properly. Check out what's growing back here at the edge of the woods. We've had a little stretch of warm weather here lately, and these will come out. They sure are pretty. Wow, this saw is really running and cutting great. It actually has fairly good power. The only thing I don't like, it's a little rough to pull on to start, but at least it does crank up pretty quick. It's going to be a great saw to have around to grab for quick jobs or trimming limbs to head height. Okay, let's recap. In a prior video, I got this saw to run after I cleaned out the spark arrestor, the muffler, and the exhaust port. I'll leave a link to that video. In this video, I cleaned out the oil and gas tank. I removed the old fuel lines. I cleaned the saw of most all debris, including the inside covers, cooling fins, and air passages. Also lubricated the start mechanics, including the little tabs that grab the starter gear, and I cleaned the saw generally with some spray away. HIPA sent me a kit allowing me to install a new carburetor, new fuel lines, new fuel filter, new primer bulb, new air filter, and a new spark plug. Also replaced the seals on the gas tank lid and the oil lid, and I put a new steel chain on it. So for less than 40 bucks, 20 if you don't need a new chain, I have a running saw that should give me many hours of service to come, I hope. Thanks to my friends at HIPA STORE .com. Their link is in the description for all kinds of engine parts to help you get your machine running faster and easier, guaranteed. Napa Auto Parts at Thomasville Crossing. Joe's Tractor Sales, I appreciate it. Smitty's One Stop, thanks to Dan for the compression tester. Also, Joyce Mitchell and Jim Forbes are co-sponsors of this video also. So I actually ended up having a great saw here. I appreciate it, and I will put this saw to use this year, I'm sure. I'll give you an update on it and some other stuff later on in the year that I've worked on. More videos are to come. I'm Big Al Cox. I appreciate you watching the video. Please hit the like if you did. And I don't get many subscribers, but I appreciate the ones that do. And until the next time, I wish you many blessings from my shop to yours.